All right, guys, today is Monday, December the 7th, 2020. And let's start with our discussion. Our discussion simply says, on Wednesday, we're going to have a quiz or we'll have a practice or whatever you want to call it that's similar to last week. All I'm asking you to do is give me the steps. So what steps would I have to do to solve this problem? Okay? So if you look at this, would you multiply by the denominator? Would you use the distributive property? Would you use the inverse property to divide by the coefficient? Would you use all of them? Would you use some of them? Okay, so what I told the class today was that when I'm solving these problems, I'm looking for this. If I'm multiplying by the denominator, I'm looking for a fraction. If I'm distributing, I'm looking for parentheses. If it's inverse, it means there's more than one number on each side, and I'm going to add or subtract to the other. And if I'm dividing by a coefficient, I'm looking for a number in front of the variable. So your answer should be that you're using the distributive property, the inverse property, and dividing by a coefficient. So those are irrefutable. You have to use those properties in order to solve this problem. There's really no other way. So a lot of things in math, you have different options. You know, for example, right here, after I used the distributive property, I ended up combining my like terms. Some people would like to use the inverse property twice, and you can certainly do that. But there are different ways to do that step. But the distributive property, the inverse property, and dividing by a coefficient are irrefutable. You have to do those things in order to solve this problem. The second thing we did is we went into a Desmos activity. And the first thing that we did is we matched these things. Now, you guys should recognize these because these are some of the same ones that you've done before. Okay, so you guys have had problems like that, and you are going to put them matched up correctly. So you'd solve for K. I put all the ones that solve for K here. All the one it says solve for M. I have the two M's here. Solve for X. I have the X's there. Solve for A. So I have I've made it much easier to see. All right, so that is one thing that you will need to do in order to be successful when you do these. So the next thing I did was these multiple choice where you already have graphs and you have to attach them to them. Now, if you notice on the first one, I did not do it for you. It's up there for you guys to do. I've neatened it up. Same thing here. I will do one of these for you on each. If it has an open dot, you know that it is either a greater than or less than symbol. It cannot be equal to. So if I were to pull this, they would connect together and I'd have two cards there. Likewise, down here, these have closed dots. So I know with a closed dot, it's got to be an equal to sign. So I'll grab this one. Remember, the arrow points the direction that it's supposed to go. So I actually put that on the wrong one. This should have been here. Sorry. So that arrow points to the left, so does my darkened arrow there. So we're going to keep working on that as days are to come. So what do I do next? So next, there's a lot of information on this page, okay? Lots of information. So up here in this corner, you're going to use my steps to tell me how I would solve this problem. All right, and to solve this problem, I'll use the distributive property. I'll combine like terms. I'll use the inverse property. I'll divide. And then I'll have to switch sign because it's a negative. So all of those things I was able to look at the problem and basically already know, with maybe the exception of this step right here. Okay? So I know I'm going to use the distributive property because I have parentheses. I know I'm going to combine terms because I have three terms on the same side. I know I'm going to use the inverse property because I see constants that will be on the left and I'm going to need to move them to the right. And I know I'm going to divide by a coefficient because I have negative 8x after I'm distributing. So those are things that I could see. I'm not asking you to solve it there. I would then ask you to put on a piece of paper for you to solve it. So I am going to distribute first. That's this first step. So that's negative 8x plus 32 minus 3 is less than 5. Now, you all should recognize this problem because it's the exact same problem you had on the discussion. Okay? The second thing I'm saying that we need to do is combine like terms. Now, some people would say, I don't need to combine like terms. I'm using the inverse property. Some people like to subtract 32 and add 3 to the other side, and they don't combine at all. Again, I think that's a short-sighted way to do it, but it is mathematically accurate. You could do that. I am going to combine my like terms, and that is going to give me plus 29 is less than 5. Okay? So now I will use my inverse property. My inverse property allows me to add or subtract something from the left to the right or the right to the left. And in this case, I want to get this negative, this positive 29 out of here, and I would subtract 29. Okay, so now I have negative 8x is less than negative 24. All right, so I'm going to write that up here again, just so you guys see it and I don't write into my information. So there we go. So now it says divide by a coefficient. So I'm going to divide. This is a coefficient. Now this coefficient is negative. That should tell us something. It tells us that this is going to be, the sign is going to be flipped. So it's going to be x is greater than 8, 16, 24. So that's 3. So x is greater than 3. That's my answer. So you're going to put that answer down here in the bottom. Okay? You're going to put that down in the bottom. And then you're going to put a dot right here, an open dot. And that's going to be the number 3. And then we're going to do 4, 5, 6, 2, 1, 0. And you're going to use your drawing thing where you can draw. Okay? Now, I'm going to put it at 3. This arrow is pointing to the right. So I am going to point this to the right. So this problem can be parentheses 3 all the way up to infinity. So a correct answer to this problem could be 3.1, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. All of those numbers will be the answer. Okay, so that is how you would do this problem. So I'm going to do one more for you guys, and then I'm going to leave the rest of them up for you. All right, we did these all in class today, so hopefully this will get you guys to get some practice in too. So I'll be hopefully seeing you guys on Desmos working out these problems. So I have kind of skipped a step here. Now, the first thing I did is I wrote down my steps. I see that there is a fraction, so I know I'm going to have to multiply by the denominator. Okay? Now, some people would say, well, I just distributed the 1/2 in there. Well, that's true. You could do it that way. You would just have to explain to me why you did it that way. All right? Now, when you multiply the denominator out, you always are going to have to distribute. Now, over here, I have 1 term, 2 terms. Over here, I'm going to have 1 term, 2 terms. So I do not need to combine like terms because they're going to be an x and a constant on both sides. Therefore, nothing will combine on their sides. But I will have to use the inverse property to move everything where it needs to be. And then I'm going to divide by the coefficient. Okay? Now, I don't think I'm going to have to divide to switch for the negative, but that is always something that I'm looking to do. Okay? So just know number 9 could happen. It might not happen. Some of us can look far enough into the problem that we'll know. A lot of us cannot, and that is okay. So first things first, I said multiply the denominator. So that's multiplied by 2. This is multiplied by 2. So this is going to be 2 times 5x plus 8 is less than 1 times 6x minus 4. The reason there's a 1 there is because that was a 1/2. I multiplied by 2 because this was the denominator. Okay, so that goes away. Now I'm going to distribute. I'm going to distribute the number in front of the parentheses. This one's a 1, so it's a pretty easy thing to distribute. This one's a 2, so this is going to be 10x plus 16 is less than 6x minus 4. All right, so I've now done this and that. Now I'm going to use the inverse property in order to solve it. Now I've got to get the x's to the left and the constants to the right. So subtract this 6x. So this one goes away because that's the opposite operation. And I am going to subtract this 16 because that is also the opposite operation. As positive becomes negative. And this will become 4x is less than negative 20. All right? So we've done both of these. And the last thing I have to do is divide by the coefficient. The coefficient in this case is 4. So I'm going to divide both sides by 4. That is a positive 4, so I do not flip the sign. So this is going to be x is less than negative 5. Okay, so I'll put that down here into this box. So I'll put x is less than negative 5 in the box. And then I come over here. I always put my negative 5 just as the middle. I don't have to do it that way. I can break things up and say 0, 5, 10. It doesn't matter what you're going up or down by. That will not change anything. I'm going to put an open dot above the 5, and I'm going to point it to the left. Okay? So that will be my answer. Any number less than negative 5. So a lot of us would think negative 4 is less than negative 5, but actually the numbers left of negative 5 are like negative 8, negative 10, negative 20. So the numbers actually go up when they're negative. All right, and so that basically gives you an idea of what we did today in class. I would like you guys to get on to Desmos and try to work out the problems yourself and see how you guys do. So if you have any questions, please send me some individual texts, and I will be more than happy to answer them as quickly as I can. Thank you guys for your time, and I look forward to talking to you soon.